Okay, so obviously I believe in the Second Amendment and the First, but I don't recommend what a lot of people do. A lot of people, they got special guns, special guns specifically for, well, some very screwed up situations that are not likely to happen. And if they do, well, that sucks and we're all fucking in for it. Now, if you are a prepper, I understand you probably do have a firearm. However, having it in your daily kit isn't necessarily the smartest idea. When you've got a get home bag, the idea behind that is that no matter the scenario, that's the stuff that you need to get home. Let's say you go to the supermarket and then all of a sudden you go outside, you think you're just going to drive home, and you notice the traffic is all backed up. Apparently, they didn't announce over the intercom that some sort of an emergency had happened. And as a result, you're pretty well stuck there. Your car is stuck there. You're not going to get through traffic. Now, you could wait it out. If it's a scenario where you can, cool. But we're worried about the scenarios where you can't. It's impossible to prepare for every single situation. That's for certain. However, there's those gray man tactics. A lot of these guys, matter of fact, I'll even look it up. All right, I had to close out 4 or 5 tabs. That way my computer won't run so slow. Now, one of the things that's important is, there's daily stuff that you can use. I got this at Wally World. It's just a light brown towel. That's not something that you'd necessarily carry around with you, but if you got a gym bag and that's what your get home bag is, well, then it makes sense that you would have stuff for the gym, like a towel for after you get done sweating and getting nasty. Take a shower, get denastified. I'm fucking itchy today. Of course, it makes sense. I've been sleeping on the floor in here quite a bit when I do sleep. Oh. And when you sleep where you walk, the stuff that your feet touches you everywhere else. So consequently, I got dirt and sand and all that other nastiness. I'm filthy. But right over here, I have, actually, it's under my butt. We have different colors that'll draw attention to you. Now, this is kind of a military looking green, but it's also an overstuffed hoodie. Um, it kind of will get you targeted in a screwed up situation. This right here is a Carhartt. This is a work jacket. This is a lot more acceptable. It's a lot more acceptable in the city situation. If you're not wanting to get judged as if you're some sort of POS drug dealer, a lot of people, when they go on a rampage, they want somebody to blame. Well, they don't necessarily want to go blaming the working man, do they? Also, the fact is, it's a natural tone. I do have a gray jacket here that it's a nice jacket, so it won't get me separated because of poverty. It is a nice looking jacket, and I don't use it every day as a result. If there's a situation where I need to not look poor, I got a gray jacket. But there's stuff like it's basic urban camouflage, but it's also urban camouflage that can be used elsewhere. Like, let's say you live in Washington State or Oregon. You're living in an area that's got moss everywhere. You've got foliage everywhere. It is green year round. Even when it's snowing, there is green all over the place. In a situation like that, if you got something that's a green base, You can take natural foliage and add it to it, um, basically to make a ghillie suit. When you're in an area and you have camouflage, between carrying camouflage that is good for every single scenario and carrying camouflage or just netting, basically, that you can take the local camouflage that's already there, between spending hours and hours and hours getting artificial leaves that you had to order and spend a bunch of money for, and then you spend all this money and all this time arts and crafts in them and all, well, natural. It's actually easier to just grab something that's natural and pick a natural base color. Green is not necessarily a decent natural base color. Brown really is. Even if you're in an area that's completely green and you're like, there's no brown here, well, there is. There is brown underneath all of that green. It's just underneath. And a lot of times, what you're looking at is what's popping to the eye. It's them bright green fucking colors. Well, that's a good thing when you're wearing something that's brown. Their eyes are not popping at you unless you're just this big brown thing in a sea of green. And if you're adding natural foliage to your stuff, well, you're reducing that. Up in Washington State, they got blackberries everywhere, and they got fucking pokies all over the place, and it'll tear up your clothes. And when it starts tearing up your clothes, you end up with holes. You can slide sticks in there. Just slide it in an inch or two. It shouldn't make it so that you can't move, and it helps to break up your outline. But also, there's vines all over the place, just like there are in Boulder. Those vines, they grow everywhere. You grab a few of those, tie a few of them around you, you still break up your outline. And it doesn't take much to break up an outline. In nature, we're used to seeing all these straight lines in our society. We want to see all of this straight line stuff, all of this stuff that is perfectly square and so on and so forth. We want stuff that's super shiny, and these are all dead giveaways. If you let's say you've got a rifle and you've got a bunch of stuff all over the ground. Pine needles are relatively straight. Let's say there's a bunch of them. Let's say you've got some bamboo and stalks that fell over and they're relatively straight. If you drop that cleaning rod on that stuff, it is still so incredibly straight that it is incredibly different from everything else. And the fact is, there's only one of it. One. When you're looking at a sea of green, you're doing the Where's Waldo thing. Where is the thing that is different? When you're looking for Where's Waldo, right? You're looking for red and white stripes to go back and forth. Oh, once you got your brain trained to see it, you find it a little easier. And then, of course, he's putting it somewhere different on every page. You might start off, you're looking for Waldo, and you start at the center, and you're like, he's not there. And you work your way all the way around, all the way till you get to the outside, and you're like, oh, there he is. So then the next one, you're like, all right, I'm going to start with the outside. And sure enough, you done wrong again. You should have started with the inside. So this guy here, he's making a ghillie suit, and he's got a lot of arts and craftsy type stuff that he likes to put on it. And he's into that. Like, he does airsoft. For him, it's not a matter of survival. If he wants to go take all of his kit and get on an airplane or get on a bus or whatever to wherever his next airsoft tournament is, like, he can do that, and he can take all of his gear. He's not having to hump it in 60, 70, 80 miles over the course of a week. So he can afford to do all of that stuff and have all of them extras. Um, when you're trying to dress for success in multiple scenarios, like, you want to do just as well if you're in the city as you do outside of the city. You got to kind of pick stuff that won't get you targeted. Here in Nebraska, this shirt is pretty well acceptable. If I was in Boulder, Colorado, people would look at me funny. If I was in Denver, it would be dependent upon whether or not the stock show was going on. If the stock show was going on, I'd be right at place wearing this. If the stock show's not going on, well, people look at me like I'm a freak. But then again, I don't usually wear clothes like this. Um, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into urban camo. Let's see, airsoft ghillie suit. So let me see. I'll try to find his. He goes by Kickin' Mustang, and I suppose I could. Here's one from 7 months ago. I'll post this one up for you. And I know there was something else that I was going to post up here that I completely forgot about. Um, a lot of people they want to train for scenarios that are completely unnecessary, completely improbable, and they're putting all of their investment into that. Um, and I'll show you what I mean. All right, it's called a backpack gun. And these guys they get really into it. Like this guy right here. Let's see. Copy link address. This is from Private Sector Arms. It's his YouTube channel. And this guy, this is his solution for everything. This is all of his supplies in a nutshell. It's just a gun. He doesn't have room for anything. With all the ammunition that's in there, there's no room for anything else. Meanwhile, what's the most important thing for you in a survival situation? It's probably food, water, and shelter. Any combination of those, and depending upon which one that you have the most readily available, one of the other ones might be the priority. Um, but there's a special little friend of all of ours that we like to take advantage of every day, and it never goes in anyone's survival packs, never goes in any of their go bags. Salt. A lot of people in survival situations, they talk about how they're going to get a deer. Well, if you get yourself a deer, what are you going to do with it? I mean, sure, it's a nice concept to talk about, but now that you got your deer, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to cure it? What are you going to do with the hide? How are you going to harvest that stuff and get it usable? I mean, you can take a hide off of a deer and work it into something that's usable without salt. You can, but you have to dry it out and you have to work it the whole time you're drying it out. And you might actually wear it to pieces. It's a lot easier to wear a rabbit skin to pieces because it's so thin. Deer, it's a little bit thicker, but not much. Not compared to a cow. It's also important to pick sensible shoes. You know those ladies who always wear the high heeled boots and all that. And there's those guys that want to wear the nice dress shoes. Like, yeah, those are not practical shoes. Dress shoes are not practical. That's one of the biggest things about having to wear that crap. Is it really, number one, it makes you a target because you look richer than you really are. You have to have that stuff, right? If you don't look the part, nobody's going to take you serious, right? I get it. Of course, it's kind of like a lot of them police officers' shoes. A police officer in them old type of shoes, they're not going to catch a fucking suspect. Are you kidding me? Now they got combat boots that are basically high top sneakers, is about the equivalent. If you got a decent hiking boot, you can get a decent hiking boot that looks good. You can also wear military boots and polish them up so that they do look, well, presentable. The fact that you got pant legs means that you cover most of your boot anyway. They can't tell if it's a fucking boot or a high top shoe. And it kind of looks stupid when we can see your ankles through your socks. There's military style clothing. Like the pants that I'm wearing, they're work pants, but they're styled after military cargo pants. And as a result, they look very military. They're also black. Kind of looks like a tactical black thing. So wearing these pants would probably get me targeted in an urban environment, and it to some degree gets me targeted here. Are you into killing or something? You like military stuff? Shit. No, I'm not into killing, and I do like military stuff. Functional military stuff. If it's not functional, I got no purpose for it. If it has no function for me, I got no purpose for it. There's a reason that I don't want a King Tiger tank. What good's it gonna do me? I don't even have a place to put the thing. If I had a King Tiger tank, I would sell it. So there's really no purpose in me getting it to begin with because I don't have any purpose to keep it except to sell it for profit. And that's where we're really getting screwed up now. Is that we got a bunch of people who are, well, they got a lot of experience at ripping people off. See, they don't want to work. A lot of people are like that. You got to work smart, not hard. But also, there's got to be some fucking ethics involved. If you're taking advantage of somebody to make a fucking profit, you're taking advantage of them. There's a difference between earning a profit and taking advantage of somebody. If you know that somebody is going to buy it for, let's say you want it, right? You want it because you know somebody will buy it. Somebody will buy it for $1,000, and you know somebody who has one that might be willing to get rid of it. Are you the guy who's going to go over there and say, "Hey, I'll give you fucking $200 for it," and try to pretend like it's a good fucking deal for them? Or are you the guy who's going to go, it's fair. I should probably offer him at least 500, and that's on the low side because you're going to try to make $500 off of that. You're going to try to double your money. Me, I always want to split it. Like, hey, I'll fucking pay for it, and I'll split whatever the difference is with you after I sell it. That means if I sell it for $1,000 and I bought it for 500, well, then I'm gonna split that $500 profit evenly, half for you and half for me. If that person wants to buy it for $100 less, hey, I'm still making a profit. If they end up being willing to spend $100 more, well, that shouldn't really matter because we already made an agreement on $1,000. If that's how much you're willing to spend, that's how much you're willing to spend. If I go over and let's say you want a wood burning stove, and I go over and I get one for you, $500 meets the specifications that you wanted. Well, I told you $1,000, and if I told you that I'd do it for $1,000, it's $1,000. If let's say that person insists on giving it to me for 200, well, I'm going to pass that on to the person I sell it to and be like, well, I got it for cheaper than I thought I was going to get it. So I'm not trying to fucking rip off anybody. The guy here, he's always, most of us, we're used to people being douchebags. For him, he's grateful for the help that he gets, and I'm grateful for the help that I get from him. It's a mutual thing. One thing that really sticks out in an urban environment is solitude. When people are looking for a victim, they look for somebody who's alone, somebody who doesn't appear to be with anyone else who might fly off the fucking handle. Like, you might go pick on that fucking kid. Looks like he's probably between 17 and 25. He's still pretty young looking. But then you notice that he's talking to a much older lady, and she's probably at least 20 years his senior, and it occurs to you that that might be his mom. And if you try to do something stupid, well, his mom might rip your ass and fucking embarrass you in public. But also, if you pull out a firearm to try to shoot her son, well, she might have a firearm to fire back at you. Or she might go fucking crazy mom on you and fucking clobber you and your gun. Guns are a nasty solution. Now, if you guys have a gun, that's good. It is. I mean, if you end up with a situation where you have to absolutely leave and you need a firearm because of the situation, then fucking by all means grab a firearm and add it to it. After 9/11, yeah, for a lot of people, I'd have said, hey, yeah, you should probably put a pistol or something in there. And it wasn't because of 9/11, it's because of how crazy people were getting. Anybody I knew who was brown, I told him to be careful. I had people who were Native Americans telling me that they were getting treated like they were in the Taliban because they're Native American. Then there's people whose ancestors are from Mexico telling me, yeah, I got to deal with that too. And there's folks from Ecuador and El Salvador and Chile and Peru and pretty much anybody who's brown. As far as your skin color goes, being white is just as likely to get you targeted. There are a lot of people who hate white people, just hate them for being white, straight up. We hear about how all these rich white people are doing all this shit, and then we just blame white people in general. Most white people don't have none of that shit that people are complaining that we supposedly have. Now, the benefit of the doubt, sometimes. The benefit of not getting fucking blasted, sometimes. But if you're called mentally ill or you're homeless, yeah, fucking, they got no problems putting a bullet in you. They'll put a bullet in you faster than they'll put a bullet in a black kid. So, part of urban camouflage is being with others. But also, are those other people wearing something that'll get you targeted? Now, through all of this, people keep on telling me, Sean, you need to dress like this, and you need to dress like that. If you didn't look like this, if you didn't look like that, if you cut off your beard, everybody's got all these suggestions that I'm well fucking aware. I am well fucking aware that right or wrong has less to do with right and wrong and more to do with how I look. I am well aware of that. if there's a situation where it gets to the point where I have to be able to fucking gray myself out, fucking disappear and not get noticed, I I can do that. I am capable of doing that. But that doesn't give me the ability to take care of myself. It doesn't stop me from being victimized just because I'm homeless, just because I'm alone. A lot of these people, after 3 years of fucking empty goddamn promises, no, I don't fucking believe them. I'm still going to them because I need their fucking help. It'd be nice if any one of these fucking dumb bitches would stop being a bitch and come forward. It would be nice if Brandon could stop chasing tail long enough to fucking write a goddamn police report. It would have been nice if one of these people had made any goddamn effort in the last 3 years to understand, instead of telling me after I've explained it to you for 3 goddamn years, you tell me, well, I didn't know. Well, holy fucking shit. How did you not know? It's like at Sally Treon's. That girl gets dragged through the whole house. She's screaming because she's getting dragged through the house. And the adults are sitting on the bed rolling a fucking joint. That woman drags that girl to that little girl's room and kicks her in the face. And I put my head in the room that all the adults are in and I say, hey, you just dragged your kid through the house and kicked her in the face. They continued rolling their fucking weed. Like, holy goddamn it. And then afterwards, I'm talking to Sally about it. She's like, well, you should have said something immediately. I'm like, I fucking did. When I said something, she hadn't even gotten that little girl to the room yet. She hadn't kicked that little girl in the face yet. She was still dragging that little girl through the house. Now, what am I allowed to do in that situation? The only thing I could do is let the parents know. They didn't seem to give a shit. I let Jerry know. She seemed to give a shit more than Sally Treon did. Oh, and by the way, this country fucking sucks. Get salt.